afternoon, everybody, and welcome to California for the next round of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series in Season 14. This is round number 4 of the Pro Series here on your Wednesday night. Very much hope you're doing well. I'm Ian O'Leary. Alongside me is a RaceSpotTV debut, Harry Burrows, joining me for the first time in this series, and Romero Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras as always. As I say, we're off the back of a really exciting third round of this championship from Indianapolis, where Blake Townend was able to take the victory after Bryce Rodriguez ran out of fuel on the run-up towards the line. He ended up finishing that race in third position, setting up a very exciting second half to this season, which we're not too far away from. We'll remind you, of course, once again that in 2025 we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as our title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of now 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. We are approaching half distance, as I say, halfway through this race. We'll indeed be halfway in the season at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. We'll be off to Europe for the next 2 rounds, Motorland Aragon and Circuit Zolder, and Virginia International Raceway to round out the calendar. The different types of circuit continue here in this series. So far in the standings, it's tied between Bryce Rodriguez and Blake Townend, although they are both, of course, as everybody is, taking into account a drop round. Rodriguez is significantly better than Townend's. Arthur Chan's drop round's pretty good as well. He's third, only 50 points back, with a bit of a gap then back to Christopher Pies. Also tied with Luke Pitson. Cody Brooks just 10 points out the top 5. Thomas Briggs and Thomas Isabel are tied on 5-10, with Jesse Line and Chris Braun rounding out the top 10. The rest of qualifying will just continue on. 19 degrees Celsius out on the track at the moment. That's just 67 Fahrenheit. It's just past 7 o'clock in the morning. It's going to remain pretty early in the morning, so it shouldn't be too bad as far as tyre wear is concerned here this evening. I'd say good evening for the first time this evening, and indeed ever on RaceSpotTV, to Harry Burrows. Good to have you alongside me, Harry. It's Porsche Cup racing at Laguna Seca. It could go one of two ways, I suppose, and people were talking about the overtaking difficulty of Indianapolis over the last 2 weeks of this series. In terms of overtaking and how difficult that's going to be, we may well see a whole nother level of that here tonight.
Well, indeed, this track is very, very close quarters, very few opportunities to truly get past someone, but also the elevation change is going to be a real struggle. So many times you're sent violently down a hill on a rear-engined car. It means you're going to have to really, really watch that car getting loosed out from underneath you and possibly send in some big dives into some very aggressive corners.
Absolutely. The track position will be very important, and most of it has been settled already. As far as I can see, the top guys have all completed their times. It's Bryce Rodriguez who currently has the best time of them all. He is 63 thousandths in front of Blake Townend and Thomas Ewing. Of course, we'll run through the starting grid just before we get to the race itself. But there's a very defined top 3 there, isn't there? Half a second then from Ewing back to Jesse Line, who's in 4th place, which is quite a lot between 3rd and 4th when you consider that all the other gaps, both inside the top 3 and outside of it, are very, very close driver to driver.
I mean, we saw one big mistake while we were just warming up at the beginning of this show. I think only a very, very certain kind of confident driver absolutely pushes to the limit here. And there's several spots, I think, as you exit the corkscrew, and there's sort of that long sweeper where you have to hit 2 apexes perfectly. If you push super hard on there, you carry momentum. If you're even a little bit off, you're a little bit scared, you're just going to lose lots of time. So that's where the drop-offs really happen.
An interesting circuit to qualify on, and we'll talk a little bit about this lap actually in a moment when we show the pole lap, which hopefully we'll be able to on the warm-up session, which will begin in a moment. This, of course, a lone qualifying session, so the warm-up session designed to get everybody used to having cars around them all over again in this series, as they will do indeed every week. So far entered into this session, 28 have set times. Pretty good going once again, although we got over 30 to the start last week at Indianapolis, where it was, as I say, as said at the start, Blake Townend took the victory. Arthur Chan took 2nd, and Bryce Rodriguez dropped to 3rd in the session that time around. Thomas Briggs, who was running up towards the front for quite a long time, He's unfortunately down in 7th in the championship now after he finished only just inside the top 20 on that particular race. So one of the contenders falls away and some more are made at the front, as we saw with the championship standings at the beginning. Those are going to start to make more sense as we go on with this championship season in Series 14 of the Porsche Club America Sim Racing Series in the Pro Class. We'll see if we can have a look at the pole time in a moment as warm-up session just begins. We'll see on board in a second. But very early morning conditions at the moment. Track temperature has indeed risen now into this warm-up session. We'll comment on it a little bit more as we get into the race itself. But track temperatures will rise throughout the day, and it remains to be seen just how high they will rise, because today's date in Sim is in May, 15th of May, 7:15 in Sim, 19 degrees Celsius. So sun not quite making its impression on this racetrack just for the moment, but will do very, very shortly, you would imagine, and will very soon be a problem for these tyres, you would imagine. Over the course of the lap, you can see them just streaming around now, and as we look from the aerial shot here, lots of drivers in the race tonight, and all of them pretty much at once heading themselves back out onto the circuit again. You mentioned it at the start, Howie, close quarters racing is a good way to describe it around here, and when there's nearly 30 of them, that's going to be very much the case, and survival going to be massive here tonight.
I wouldn't necessarily count out, though, some pretty aggressive overtaking in cars like this. They'll be opportunistic, it will be rare, but corners like the Andretti hairpin in a GT-style car, it's going to encourage people to just make big, aggressive moves. There's quite a few of these. You've got to watch out for those brake locks as you go down the hill at the same time, of course, but this is a track where people sometimes just move each other or sometimes just get the elbows out in order to get stuff done. It seems to encourage that sort of behavior quite often. I would not count it all out, as long as you watch out for those giant sausage curbs on the inside of the Andretti hairpin as we watch the pole lap.
Which are completely pointless. But anyway, they are there. This is indeed the pole lap. Bryce Rodriguez just avoiding those through the first couple of corners, and now we'll do the same here. Just actually make it pretty easy to spot your apex, I suppose. You just got to make sure you just miss the red sausage curb on the inside as he comes down towards turn 5 now, doing exactly the same. Bit of a later apex here to get the exit. It's not a particularly long straight on the way towards turn 6, which is a very, very committed corner indeed. And again, more sausage curves on the inside, just avoiding that one. No tarmac runoff on the exit there here in the iRacing scan, which personally a fan of, as they now come up towards the famous corkscrew, one of the most famous corners in all of motorsport anywhere in the world, never mind in North America. Over the other side of the hill as the rear gets loose over the top, just short shifts a little bit as he comes down the hill, using gravity to help him. Now a little bit of a late apex for the third last corner, pulling it over to the left in time for this right-hander, and then that final corner, which is turn 11. Decent overtaking chance actually, if anybody's feeling brave, through this final turn and onto the front straight again. Pretty short lap round here, 1:23.4. We're going to see a lot of laps tonight, more than 45 laps over the course of today's race. You would have thought, because we've got an hour's long race. As I say, those red sausage curves do make it very easy to spot your apex, but why they've got them on this kind of a circuit where there's sandy the side of the circuit, enforcing track limits anyway, I must admit I'm not entirely sure.
Adds a little bit of spice, adds a little bit of surprise when it just comes at you by surprise and you have no idea it's coming. I find one of the most committed corners of this track to be right after the famous course through the rainy curve going down the hill. Is our starting grid. Nonetheless, I'll let you lead off.
It's Bryce Rodriguez who will indeed take the pole by 63 thousandths ahead of Blake Townend. Thomas Ewing inside of a tenth of pole as well, with Jesse Lyon in 4th position. Justin Sang, and who won't be too far away from, might even be his home track from the Golden Gate region, and Arthur Chan will be in 6th position. Chan 3rd in the championship, don't forget. Logan Grado back, which is pleasing to see for him. He'll lead off from 7th place on the start of this race, only his 3rd appearance this season after missing Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago. Robbie Prescott will be alongside with Thomas Isabel and Chet Henson rounding out the top 10. Kerry Brooks is the last driver within a second of pole, and Matthew Odell will be in 12th place. Klaus Nielsen will start from 13th in the Lone Star region, with Leif Peterson alongside. Matthew Jokol and Christopher Pies both 1.1 seconds off the pole, but Christopher Pies continually makes up places during races with quite a lot of urgency. He's finished in the top 10 on every occasion so far this season. although never in the top 3. Michael Patterson and Lenny Holland will then share row 9. Matthew Siddall and Jonathan Waltman will be on the last spots inside the top 20. Kevin Jerkel and Terence Tong outside that top 20, with Brett Holmes and Stephen Poles then on row 12. And the grid is brought up by Eric Sutton, Rodney Campbell, Christopher Cook and Ben Leung, the final drivers to set times here tonight in those 28 cars. So you can see them gridding up on the back straight and almost getting ready to go. Say it is going to be a very exciting race here today, that is for sure. Survival the key, as we mentioned, but that qualifying session just there, I do wonder how much sort of a bearing that is going to have on the race results, and just how much it's going to hamper drivers like Christopher Pies, for example, who like to make up places during the race. This is not necessarily the circuit to do that on.
I'd be a little bit scared if I was in the middle of this pack and was flying down to the Andretti hairpin and just trying to hope that I don't get in the middle of a bunch of traffic. You could make up places through attrition, although indeed getting near the absolute top end of this grid is going to take maybe some strategy on the pit stop. But other than that, it's going to be hard to just fly past people without a lot of aggression.
Yeah, certainly will be a challenging race up ahead, but that's why we enjoy the Porsche Club America Sim Racing Series. There is Pies, who is right in the mid-pack, right in the danger zone. See how he gets on. And indeed, the other drivers here tonight in round 4 of our Pro Championship for Season 14. Into the final corner for Bryce Rodriguez, who's taken yet another pole here tonight. Played Townend alongside, looking to continue to gain points on Rodriguez, just as was done 2 weeks ago. Green flag waves in California. We're underway at Laguna Seca for round number 4, and it's a good start from Rodriguez. Townend can't respond on the outside line. Oh, and it's 3 wide, very nearly on the way towards turn number 2. Into the Andretti hairpin for the first time. There's a spinner right in front of the field, and there's going to be carnage here as it rolls back onto the circuit. At least a couple of drivers caught up in it as well. Oh my goodness, off a chance, certainly delayed. Thomas Ewing, the one who goes all the way around. Robbie Prescott drops to the back as well. It's a chaotic start. It was likely to happen. You mentioned you don't want to be in the midfield. It was in the battle for 3rd position where Thomas Ewing gets spun out from.
That gap on the inside looked so enticing to send it 3 wide. You were going to get boxed in on the inside of that turn, and there also wasn't a huge amount of room given. There's a lot more on the right-hand side, so Thomas just sort of ends up being in the wrong place. On one of Prescott for the replay on the outside line. I wonder if, yeah, it just sort of spins into his way. I mean, you just have to sort of slow down and re-enter the sand pit that's now been made on the exit of turn 1. That's going to be fun clearing up later.
Yeah, it's the iRacing dirt system rearing its head for Prescott there, because as he tried to get back going again, he slid and he dropped even further away. Jonathan Waltman is the only other driver to have trouble on this opening lap, and that's how he got spun off into the gravel. Unceremoniously dumped into the gravel trap down at turn 5 there.
Side, and people are sort of starting to work out space near each other. It's led to a lot of spreading out near the front. Some of those fastest racers now are gonna be sent right to the back and lost those gaps. You can see just how much gravel is on the exit of some of these turns. I think if you take a wrong line or try and go too wide, you're gonna have really, really big problems for some time until some cars get in the way of that cleaning up. Bryce Rodriguez and Blake Townsend, makes sense that they're at the front of all people, but I think they're just kind of happy now that they've got that buffer behind them.
Yeah, it certainly will be. So that's Waltman's gravel trail, by the way, coming straight onto the racing line for these guys to deal with for a lap or so, but with nearly 30 out there, it should be cleaned up pretty quickly. This is looking good for Blake Townend at the moment, I've got to say. Putting a lot of pressure on Bryce Rodriguez here so far tonight. Over the top of the hill here at the corkscrew, as Justin Sang has had trouble through turn 6, it looks like. This battle for the lead will continue nose to tail, and we'll see whether Townend settles in and is happy with this situation, or just how hard he pushes to make an overtake in these next few laps.
I mean, it's such a long race, and this is such a track that's going to test your patience, that I often find that I just start pushing too hard here and then make a big mistake. There's Justin Sang going wide and catching a bit of gravel on the right-hand side tyres, rejoining the track. I often find this track sort of lulls me. The false sense of security when I'm here for a long time. I start to think I could push harder and harder and harder, and then there is such a thing as too hard around there. So maybe in this race length, you only really need one chance to get ahead, and then at that point, the guy behind is by only one chance, but there aren't many.
Absolutely. You cannot afford mistakes like what we saw for Justin Sagler either. He drops all the way down to 27th in this race. Had to pretty much wait for the entire field to go on past. Bryce Rodriguez still leads, however. Blake Townend and Jesse Line, who is joining them as a front three. We saw the three fastest in qualifying were a long way faster than the rest, but Line wasn't one of those three, don't forget. Thomas Ewing was the other one, and he'll be exciting to watch come through the field at some point here tonight as well. But Line has really stepped up the pace in the race here compared to what we saw in qualifying, and maybe that's a sign. Is his long run speed better than his qualifying speed? It's very possible as he sticks with these two at the front.
Could also just be possible you just had one or two bad laps, you just sort of slipped wrong. There's some more cutting of the bottom of that corkscrew as one overtakes done by Logan Grado, though. I think he's the one that's actually passed on the exit of that turn. Some drivers sort of underestimating the exit of that turn. The corkscrew's very famous, but I find that actually it's by far not the hardest corner on the track, but that means if you underestimate it, it just surprises you when you realise that the apex is somewhere that you weren't quite expecting.
Corner, but I probably agree it's not the hardest in the world, although we might be about to eat our words. Kevin Jokel goes very wide. Oh, hello. And jumps back onto the circuit again. Getting a little bit of airtime even. It's even steeper off in the gravel, if you can believe it, compared to the tarmac. Grado went a little bit wide through there as well, as we saw in live pictures. Thomas Isabel gets through into fourth position, but the gap ever grows to that front three. It's one long line after that, by the way. Next gap more than a second. There's 1.1 second gap between Pies and Matthew Jokel for 11th and 12th position, and then another second back to Lenny Holland after that, and then another small gap to Mike Patton, and then you get a little bit larger as you get to guys who have already had trouble here tonight in the first 5 minutes. But this long train is very, very sort of, oh dear, as 68's now in trouble. Lenny Holland, just as I was saying, he was on his own there, but he looks like he's either hit something or been hit by someone, because he's got a meatball flag, and you can see why with the damage to the right-hand side of that car.
I think the lack of ABS is going to be quite brutal on this track, and I was thinking about on the top of that corkscrew, to be fair to people, it's a very high pressure braking zone and it catches up with you, and you might anticipate you have more time than you do. Not really sure how you take that hard of a hit just before it, because the walls are quite far away and I don't see another car that got wrecked with it. Looking further back up, and Chad Henson sort of holding off a big train right now, a little bit of contact to the rear. The gap's building ahead, and now I think people are going to want their way through here.
Yeah, they will. Climbing on top of each other to do so. Gary Brooks just in behind Klaus Nielsen, as well as Lee Peterson here as well in ninth. And you see lurking in the background. So it's all in this big fight at the moment for fourth place on backwards, although Thomas Isabel and Logan Grado trying their very best to get away from the rest of them. This was the last lap through turn 6. Randy Holland's issue. He went a little bit wide into the gravel. Oh, he hits the wall hard. That's what he's done. He's not been hit by anybody else. He's just lost it and hit the wall hard. And to be fair, the wall is very close to you to go and collect you on the exit of turn 6 there. This is Terence Tonk through the third last corner. And he also slides, and also he's going to find the wall here. No, he doesn't. He saves it before he finds the wall, but he spins around at least, and rather strangely tries to rejoin the circuit with a complete reverse 180. And we'll get back going again as well. But it's a punishing circuit. Certainly in some points, the wall is very, very close by to collect you like that.
We've had some flat tracks. We were just at Indianapolis. We've also had some tracks with some elevation change. We started here at Spa. But this is one where I find it's so relentless, because they just packed so many of the elevation changes into such a tight space. Instead of the second and third sectors of this track, it's almost just like constantly up and down, up and down. You sort of don't get this neutral time to reset yourself, really. You get about this first sector, you start going up the hill, and then you're just a mountaineer in a Porsche Cup car with a rear engine. So it is certainly a bit of an endurance challenge, I think, compared to anything else out there on the schedule.
Going to need to check the terminology on mountaineerer, but
I think I made that up.
I think that's the whole point of the word mountaineer. anyway, I don't know. What do I know? But yeah, just rather feel like they've sort of chosen one hill and just built a racetrack on the top of it, making it feel very, very hilly around here. But it's what gives this circuit its character, of course, as we go on board with Thomas Ewing, who's already up to 18th place, trying to make up some more positions. Stephen Pole's the one who's just in front of him on this occasion, down the other side of the corkscrew. Might be a bit of advice to some of them on the top of the screen here from Ewing on the bottom of the screen as to how to make an overtake at this venue, because so far Blake Townend hasn't been able to, although he has a look there inside at the Marie-Andre hairpin. That was the first sign really that Bryce Rodriguez under pressure.
I noticed that Townend was sort of trying different lines near the back half of that lap, or maybe Rodriguez was the one that was going wide and trying different lines. Either way, a nose is being stuck out bit by bit, and that's the body language of a car that is not being patient and waiting. I think Jesse Lyon is the one that's really just waiting and trying to keep pace, whereas Blake Townend, he's sort of had enough, I think. He's just going for it now at every chance, but when you're the second fastest behind the fastest, that is certainly a taller order than being fast and having to make your way back up. I'll give him that.
Yeah, certainly. Thomas Ewing again will have another chance towards turn 5 here, and defending in front of him this early on in the race. I mean, they're entitled to, but it won't thrill Thomas Ewing by any means. He tries on the outside there, can't get it done. He's extremely close coming in towards turn 6. But a better line, quite the better exit there. It's difficult to see you when you sort of be getting on the power really, when you're following somebody so closely there to go over the top of the corkscrew as well. We'll see on the top of the screen as well whether there's going to be a change for the lead here, because Townend is starting to get really close, and maybe even have a look down the inside of the way towards turn 2. He sort of shows that he's not going to go for it, and Rodriguez is certainly unnerved by what happened last lap. He dived for the apex a little bit earlier than usual at that time round.
This is certainly the sort of reactive driving from someone that knows that they're under threat a bit, and luckily, even if that affects your lap times, I don't think that's the biggest difference maker around here, because we're showing that pure pace is very difficult to pass on, and there's not exactly a threat further behind. But when you let the car behind get in your head, that might be when they actually strike for the real opportunity here.
Yeah, exactly. As Townend completed that first part of that, and now he can focus on the move itself as he comes up towards the top of the corkscrew himself there. He's always very strong out of turn 6 there. It's a shame for him that there's not a better overtaking chance at the end of that next straight, because he might be able to use it if there was. But don't forget about Jesse Lyon either. He's still sat there in third position, watching as these two work each other out here, just feel each other out. Shadow boxing at the moment, really, in the first fifth of this race tonight from Laguna Seca. And a better exit that time from Bryce Rodriguez. Last couple of times Townend has had the advantage, but Rodriguez should have enough on the way down towards the hairpin this time round with that sort of an exit. And again, Lyon just backs away and doesn't want to get involved just for the moment. They're almost tripping over each other though on occasion. Very, very close to one another down towards turn number 2. There's Peterson as well, down towards turn 2. Looks backwards and sees a whole train of cars, and by the way, if you look forwards, as he will be doing, there's a whole train of cars up to Chad Henson as well from 6th place. It's a very, very large but static group at the moment back there.
Do you want to be the one that disrupts the peace at this stage? With the pit stop in the middle, drivers will sort of eventually separate themselves out in terms of pace level. It is mostly just a fuel stop, but sometimes you find remarkably that you've changed positions after a fuel stop because you've just been given the space to get clean laps, and that makes a difference. So I do think drivers want to take it easy, especially in a big pack like that. 15 minutes has already passed the time, well, not quite, but we're almost there, give or take. Time does fly, is all I'm saying.
It does.
But other than Logan Grado on his own, Thomas is now kind of on his own. Everyone else really has sort of compressed, and I think Rodriguez is sort of getting away with this right now to increase the gap. Here's a bit of replay. I think we just saw Robbie Prescott jump down in positions, and I think we know where this happened. That might just be a bit too much speed carried into the corkscrew and actually flying off the ground entirely on the way down.
We are going to be massively forced to eat words at the end of this broadcast, because that's that is a difficult corner. At least it's turning out for other people. But anyway, I thought I saw Matthew Odell drop down the field actually as well. I wonder whether he's had trouble. Maybe I've imagined that. But I thought he was in that big group with the rest of them, but clearly not. Thomas Ewing decides to make the early pit stop. I don't normally see too many of these. I was complaining a couple of weeks ago, you won't know this, Harry, but I was complaining a couple of weeks ago at Indianapolis that the early stops weren't happening quite enough as far as, you know, trying to get track position, trying to get a bit of an undercut on some of your rivals goes. Just nobody was really making an undercut. Because obviously if you pit early, you've got to have a really heavy car at this stage. Thomas Ewing would have pretty much brimmed that tank, so you can't do a full tank here, but you can put the fuel limited tank full. And, you know, he's done that now to get himself into a bit of clean air. I'm not so sure that he's just put himself back behind the drivers he's just overtaken. But you can understand why he's made that early pit stop. And you know, we'll see if it works out for him. But as I say, that could be even more traffic for him.
People like to always talk a lot about where the fuel tank is or where it does to the weight in this car because it does sort of stand out. But I've done GT3 endurance racing in a Porsche around here. Yes, I get the assist, it's easy mode, but you do notice, right, as that tank starts running out, the whole thing just starts becoming loose over the hills. You just can't quite push like you used to. So, I mean, it's a bit early for that to really take advantage, but that means that as we sort of reach this middle point, drivers might be thinking, where's my pace gone? On a track where you can't really pass, I often find that making that early stop just gets you in clean air, and at that point, you're not following anyone. You can just do your lap. Sure, you're at the back, but if you're fast, it will come back, Matthew Odell. Don't know if you got help there.
He did get help, but he hit the back of the car in front of him. So it's not that domino effect, really, that eventually someone's going to go around. Concertina effect, it's called. There it is. Just a little bit of contact with Christopher Pies, that is, who's up into the top 10 now. As I mentioned, I don't know if he can be blamed too much for that because Odell hit the one in front of him, so very difficult to say who is at fault in those situations, but drops to 14th position. You can see the sizable dent in the rear end actually from Christopher Pies, and it's a bit of a signature on these Porsche Cup cars. You can find a fairly sizable dent in the back. The point being that it's because Pies got hit by Jokel as well in the rear through the corkscrew, so it's, yeah, not sure where race control are going to apply the blame there, but we'll see the black flag come up on the top of our screen if indeed there is a penalty assigned, because don't forget there are no incident point drive-through penalties in this series. If you reach the incident limit, you are out, and the black flags may well come for race control incidents, as into the pit lane come Leif Peterson and Christopher Pies indeed. So some early stops this week.
I don't know whether drivers are reckoning with the way that the fuel changed the car. I don't know if they're all thinking, let's get out of traffic at the same time, which ironically puts them in traffic. Or maybe they just listen to you, in fact, and your advice last time around. I think there is going to be a bit of a divergence, though. Ironically, if everyone's stopping early, then actually staying out gets you to clear air, and then maybe that's good for you. So you just can't really read minds.
And also the fact it's an 84-second lap means that you're actually quite close to going a lap down by the time you've stopped anyway. Siddle has already made his stop even before Thomas Ewing did actually, and he's at 54 seconds off the lead. Lenny Holland and Ben Leung unfortunately are the two retirements so far, by the way, so we are down to 26, but it's just going to be traffic everywhere at some point tonight, and so it almost doesn't matter what you do. I'll be pleased if they're taking my advice, but I'm not entirely sure whether that is the case, or indeed whether that's advisable. But it might be, because Henson is starting to defend here. Klaus Nielsen attacking him, and it must be a frustrating position to be in if you're Klaus Nielsen and you're not trying to make the overtake on Henson, because him defending fresh air like that is just going to cost them more time.
And you almost want to get past the guy just because someone else is doing the same to you behind. Does actually try and get to the outside right as that third driver does make the pit stop. So Gary Brooks is in. That might take some of the pressure off as the next car back. I think that's Michael Patterson is a little bit further back. And whenever we see a replay split screen at the top of the corkscrew, it's because something's happened. To be fair, no ABS, no traction control. It goes from not the hardest corner to maybe the hardest corner, and maybe that is the eating of the words.
Got backtrack now, we've said it. And I agreed. So we've both had it, but that's another spin through the corkscrew, as it turns out. One of these drivers is going to listen back to this and think, well, you have a go then, which of course I won't. But it's another spin through there. Eric Sutton gets a black flag, by the way. He's currently running in 13th place. Not sure what he would have got that for, actually, but that's where he drops to, or at least he's running at the moment. We'll see where he drops to. Sebastian Sang just behind will gain that extra place. Another one of those drivers who's making up positions after a slow start and indeed a spin on lap 2, I think it was, coming out of turn number 6. Again, Henson putting the or defending from Klaus Nielsen here, who is taking a few different lines. If he is trying to get Henson to focus forward and not defend from him, then he's not doing a very good job of sort of reassuring him, because he is just showing the nose now and again. As Blake Townend goes for the lead, and indeed takes the lead from Bryce Rodriguez. Oh, it looks like there's trouble. There is trouble down into the Marindre hairpin. Now, was there contact with Townend, or was it Lyon trying to follow Townend through that meant he and Rodriguez go for a spin? They don't actually drop any places. They're still second and third, but they're now nearly 5 seconds off the new race leader. Let's see what happened. Bryce Rodriguez was leading this race, as he has been for the first 19 minutes, but Townend was close in behind him. He dived to the inside, and Jesse Lyon just runs Rodriguez over.
Just a little bit too late on the brakes for Jesse Lyon, and that's going to be probably quite an easy call and probably quite a regretted moment, because now Bryce has a lot of time to make up, and the pace difference between the two over the course of this race hasn't been spectacularly different, so he might just be ruining the moment he was ran into there. And meanwhile, Blake suddenly feels no pressure whatsoever. So if he messes something up now and loses the 5-second gap by spinning at the top of the corkscrew, then that's a real on you sort of moment. We've really proved anything can happen in 20 minutes. A more accurate timer this time.
Matthew Jokel also drops down. I fear that might be the corkscrew again. Based on where he's running at the moment. Let's hope not, for our sake, as Jesse Lyon catches up to Bryce Rodriguez, who is now in second place and maybe a bit wounded because he got properly hit there at the rear left, maybe even giving him a tweak of suspension damage, but let's hope not for his sake, as Klaus Nielsen wants to get out of the traffic, wants to get out from behind Chad Henson. He wants to come into the pit lane. Who can blame him at this stage in the race? He will drop now down the field. So many early stops tonight. There he is, taking his in the pit lane. Almost approaching half the field. There's certainly a third or so of the field have taken their pit stops already. There's Bryce Rodriguez, 5 seconds behind Blake Townend, who, dare I say, is going to be cruising now. And there you go. Jesse Lyon assigned a penalty. Drive through, not surprised. Did look like, as much as it was just a misjudgment and not intentional from Jesse Lyon, it was deserving of a penalty.
Yeah, that has sort of slowed down this battle a fair bit, and maybe Jesse Lyon's going to think and be a bit scared of making a move if an opportunity opens up on Bryce Rodriguez. You don't want to make a second enemy out there on the track. It was a mistake, but no, Jesse's going to get out of that clean air, and this is going to sort of revert this top now into pretty much a hot lap battle. And on topic of a hot lap battle, it's been about a 10th or 2 tenths gained.
There he is, taking his drive through. So where does he come out? Does he come out just in front of that big group, which is there's still fragments of from Chad Henson on backwards? He's definitely going to be behind at least one of them, I would say. Henson's going to roar past, I think. Maybe not, actually. Maybe he'll get away with that. Of course, I forget it's inside of the circuit pit lane here, which means you do lose less time than some other circuits. Careful on the exit. One of the most precarious pit exits in the whole world. Comes out and will be fifth. So not a terrible loss there. 2 positions lost for Jesse Lyon, but race control can't do a lot about the fact that there's nobody behind him to take those positions away from him. They've just got to look at the action, assign a drive-through penalty as a result of it, and then he will drop down to 5th place as a result as well. So that's Jesse Lyon dropping to 5th place, but not a disaster.
Given his championship position, which is in that top 10, but could do with a little bit more, I think even the 5th place is going to be quite good. Apparently only 2 drivers with no incident points in this entire race so far, by the way. Mike Patterson and Chad Henson are the only 2 to not touch the gravel, which is pretty impressive given some of the commitment around this track.
Do require some big commitment, and fair play to them for keeping it clean so far. They're running in 6th and 7th as well, which is that's probably one of the reasons why, indeed, as well. 23 minutes complete here at Laguna Seca, and of course time to remind you once again that we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises on board as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of our series in 2025, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of now 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Still 37 minutes to go here from California. Myself, Unilever, and Harry Burrows in commentary for you tonight with Ramiro Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras of RaceSpotTV broadcast. We'll be back tomorrow night, by the way, for the club class in the Porsche Club America Sim Racing Series, racing every Wednesday and Thursday right up until the end of the season, which is in December. 7 rounds in each of our 4 championships. So make sure you come back every Wednesday and Thursday night as Ryan Cowley looks to take 3 in a row potentially after his victories at Watkins Glen and Indianapolis, the first 2 American rounds of that championship. See whether anybody else can win tomorrow night. As Stephen Poles and Jonathan Walkman continue their fight for the first team. Look at that! A dive to the inside from Walkman into the corkscrew, but again, it's the racing line is so narrow there that Poles just had to move it over slightly, and Walkman was blocked into the famous corkscrew.
Some of these drivers further back really are clawing and scraping for every little thing they have. Even though the battle at the front is defused, there's still drivers plenty close to each other, and you were more right than me on that drivers haven't really forced these opportunities as much as I would have expected. Who am I for not expecting respectful racing standards, to be totally honest? But also, over-committing at a Porsche Cup car can mean absolute horrors, and we've seen 1 or 2 horrors, but we've not seen some truly boneheaded commitment. So people are just sizing themselves up. But it's been a race of attrition as well. People have just been losing it everywhere, and if you don't lose it, you make 3 positions.
Exactly. In terms of those who've made those so far, by the way, it's slightly false because of the pit stops we've seen, but Brett Holmes is up 15 positions so far in this race, and he's on screen at the moment, defending from Matthew Erdl, and also catching up to Mike Patterson, who, I don't want to say it, might have gone wide at turn 8 there, turn 6 rather, and lost his incident-free race. Maybe he's fine, but the gap certainly did dip below a second for the first time there, as Brett Holmes closed in just a little bit on the driver in 7th place. As I mentioned before, these positions are slightly false because of the lack of pit stops we've seen so far, but the pit stop window, this is one of the great things that I really admire about the series, and thoroughly enjoy about it. It's the fact that the pit stop window is so wide that you can come in with still just over 45 minutes to go, and also less than 15 minutes to go. I'd imagine there'll be somebody still running, having not made their stop yet, and that's what makes this so exciting to watch. Stephen Poles is just in front of Jonathan Walkman now. Again towards the first turn braking zone anyway. And Poles holds on to 13th on that occasion. As we joined Terence Tung there, by the way, it did look like he was having trouble getting underway. Seemed a little bit slower speed than usual, so I wonder whether there will be a replay there soon of an incident. We're about to get one. He was leading the group and was under a lot of pressure here on the way towards turn 6. Not a recognised overtaking place, and we're about to find out why. There's the contact with the 04 car. Oh, through the middle for somebody. They're going straight through there. It was Klaus Nielsen, by the way, trying to make the place. That was a past 4 position that went very badly wrong.
Even more compact in the back. I mean, that's the reason that's not a very well recognised overtaking spot, is you have to send it on the inside. You're going to wash wide. Here's Eric Sutton.
Oh, no.
Just right in the path of the rejoining car there. There was a little bit more time to see that one coming, although these cars can be hard to slow in a panic. Really wrong place, wrong time.
Or indeed turn out the way, because as long as he may have seen that coming, he wouldn't have been able to get out the way, and that may well be a penalty for the rejoining car, because that was not particularly great rejoining, unfortunately. Rodney Campbell comes into the pit lane meantime. He was starting to be overtaken by drivers who have already made their stop, and so decided that pit lane was the best choice. Probably correct as well. Ironically, Liv Peterson, Christopher Pies and Arthur Chan pitted to get out of traffic, and they've all ended up in a group with each other in 15th, 16th and 17th, and they're catching these two as well. So again, I'm not, as much as I was railing against these guys, all running as long as they possibly could, which is effectively what everybody did but one at Indianapolis last time out. The early stop here hasn't exactly gained those guys too much either, although I guess they've got to try something.
An almighty crunch on the back of one car, leading to the almighty crunch on the back of another. I've been looking at some of the data on the pit stops, and it looks like in the lane you're going to spend about 32 seconds, and that is interesting. Because it's not as much time as I quite thought it would be. To be honest, I almost just thought Jesse Lyon stopped before I remembered the stop we've seen as a drive-through. So actually, for a minute, I thought for some reason Jesse Lyon had made up almost infinite time. So of course you can't just quite cheat the pit lane like that. But more of our top field, our whole top 14 haven't stopped at all. They will get jumped just a little from the drivers from 15 down though. With Lenny Holland just slow. It's got to be a hardware failure in that one.
I think it's that traffic, because Holland is 8 laps down and just deciding that, you know, I better just get out of everybody's way here. And so fair play for still running, but currently down in 27th place. Because there are points available for every single position, no matter whether you actually finish the race, cross the line or not, it is worth getting back out there again, because every time in front of you means another 10 points if there's enough time in the race for you to overtake them. So it's very much worthwhile for Lenny Holland to get back out there again, and indeed he is, thankfully. Although we'll see him getting out of everybody's way when he needs to, because he's not involved in the fight. Matthew and Kevin Jokel running nose to tail here for the first time tonight. 10th, 11th, just insane at the moment. One of those drivers, as you mentioned, in that top 14 who hasn't stopped yet and has worked his way through the field by not pitting. It's sort of taken the opposite idea as what Thomas Ewing has done, which is make an early pit stop to get in front of some of these guys. Sang is running late, because as you mentioned, sometimes running later can actually mean you in less traffic than pitting early, sort of weirdly.
But you do spend longer with the car in its very strange sort of unbalanced loose state, because you run the tank to dry and you don't refill that much fuel, and then there's still not much fuel in the car. So if you love the car in that state on a track like this, where it's a lot looser because there's just even less weight up on the front, and I can't push it as well in the other scenarios. If you do like that, even on this track and you're confident in it, you're going to spend more time with the car like that if you make this stop very, very late in the race. It seems like a lot of drivers have committed to that.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the two extremes here. Pit very, very, very early, or as late as possible, and you can get the best result that way. But if the field split's pretty much half and half, there's not too much advantage, or not to either. 4 seconds now the gap for Blake Townend at the front of the field. I just wonder whether he's coming under a bit of pressure at the moment. There's another 23.9 from Bryce Rodriguez last time around. He's just been absolutely relentless so far. It's only 300ths of a second slower than the best lap of the race so far. These tyres are clearly not going away very much, and Blake Townend is seeing his margin just eaten into slightly. This has got to be a small concern with nearly half an hour to go. The time he's losing at the moment could be significant.
I think there's got to be enough laps that if this continues, there's a chance that he's within range. Sometimes Bryce is getting good laps. Sometimes he's just sort of getting on exactly on the same sort of level, though. But has been consistent. That has dropped in about 10 minutes by a second. So it's possible that just keeps building and building and building. Then we're in a unique situation where the battle for the lead is back on. Right now, it's just about running hot laps, I think, for both drivers, and just hoping that works out. I think Christopher Clay has just also had another incident of his own. I'm only guessing someone dropping down on my tower. It's fun to just speculate these things when drivers drop down, like where did it happen this time? Looking at the positions gained and lost. It's still a bit misleading due to some of the pit stops, but worth noting, Thomas Isabel will be pitting with the rest of this pack and has made up quite a lot.
Yeah. Six gains so far, and I think that is the legitimate place he's in at the moment. Brett Holmes up the most overall though, 14 so far. In ninth, we'll check in a bit later to see who has the most at the end, as Jesse Lyon is going to be waved on by Logan Gredo. Very nice of Gredo to do that, but absolutely didn't have to. And just Lion can count himself fortunate, I think, that he's won that third place back, effectively meaning his black flag has only cost him 1 place. But again, not much race control can do about the fact that there's not too many close to him. They can only punish the action Lion committed. That was a bit of contact with Bryce Rodriguez. They've penalised that. Unfortunately, it hasn't really lost Lion very much in the grand scheme of things here. He's only down to 4th place.
I'd say what was 21 seconds in the lane, I'd say that is a meaningful penalty, but the gap has been so extended by that top 3, and the top 3 was just so much faster and running away that you almost have to give someone, it's almost like unfairly more than normal just because it's scared the gap, which obviously doesn't work. In race pace, Jesse Lyon's been fast. Well, the odds that he catches Thomas Isabel, it's harder to do that, but I think there has been pace in that 1:15 car. We obviously saw it at the start of this race, that sort of long run pace where you're trying to be consistent every lap certainly beat out the qualifying run.
Look at the gap that's been extended already. You can certainly understand it from Logan Brown's point of view. Brett Holmes, meantime, with Mike Patterson, who I'm still not sure whether he's incident free or not, but he's lost a place there to Brett Holmes, who's now up into 8th position. Patterson has gained positions in his own right, in fairness, but this has got the early signs of a big group here. Justin Sang finding himself at the back of it, which is not particularly ideal, and the guys who have pitted are not that far away from it either, although I think these guys will be in the pit lane before they ever get there. It is pretty much extended from Matthew Odell, who's in 7th place, but unusual for Patterson to lose a place through the corkscrew like that, and Brett Holmes can make up yet another place. He's had pit stop phase or not, he's had a brilliant race to gain so many places.
Trying to break down some of the past laps between these top 2, and only once or twice has Townend ever been faster on a lap, but the gap gained hasn't been completely consistent, and so sometimes Bryce has gained almost nothing, and sometimes it's been like a really big game when I assume Blake Townend makes a very small mistake up ahead. Now I'm starting to wonder, is this starting to even out a little bit in the 24 minutes remaining? I think you need a few hero laps or a significant mistake, because Townend has set 3 consecutively faster ones in a row. He is watching that gap and aware of it.
Just less than 25 minutes to go here from Laguna Seca. In a bit of a holding pattern at the moment as we wait for these final stops of the day. Thomas Ewing will be exciting to watch though, because he's still coming through the field after an early pit stop he thought would get him out of traffic. Maybe it has to a degree, but it hasn't completely absolved him of any overtaking responsibilities. Don't forget, he's down here despite qualifying in 3rd, because he was spun around at the first hairpin on lap 1, and he's had to make up positions and make up time ever since then. On the back of Matthew Siddle, who himself is a pretty strong driver, to be running down in 19th place, and Kerry Brooks next in line as well. It's a very strong 18th, 19th, 20th run, and Ewing unfortunately found himself at the back of it, having to make up the positions. An unenviable position for the driver who qualified 3rd.
Yeah, I mentioned being in the middle wasn't the best place to be in. It did turn out that 3 wide opportunity on lap 1 when it was sent up the inside was actually sort of the beginning of the end, and being stuck in the middle in any 3 wide situation, it's the scariest one because you can make a variety of decisions. You often make the wrong one in those places, let alone in a giant hairpin. Bit of a slip on the exit. Generally, the place is just not made up for this race, unfortunately. Taking a look on board, Lee Peterson in the 14th place. Looks like he's gone nowhere in particular this race so far.
Yeah, very much so. With a pit stop, well, I'll say a pit stop already made, he will gain some of those back again, but quite how many it's going to be the question, I suppose, with the front 3 especially so far in front of the rest of the field, definitely the front 2. Peterson now on the back of Waltman, sort of starting to experience the problems really of making an early pit stop. Hasn't been too much traffic for this group so far, but now there is, and there's still the potential that Waltman runs for another 10 minutes, and Peterson really can't afford that.
Yeah, if we assume 32 seconds in the lane, Peterson could actually make it up to around 5th, 6th or 7th when it all evens out. If assuming other factors go certain ways throughout the race, but if it's 30 seconds in the pit lane, then it will be 30 seconds gained. When some of these slower drivers at the back of this non-pitting track, I think some of them are definitely slower than the rest, and it's all just been elevated through the circumstance of their strategy right now. That will actually be a decent gain on the way home. 10 positions gained for Kevin Juckle, so that has been a race of finding so far that might fall back down to earth very, very soon. I think that's one of the drivers is going to be quite eaten up when the pit stops happen in a very vulnerable place.
Just inside, might be up the inside there. Oh, and he's put him off. Off for Kevin Juckle, over the gravel he goes. And that's how you do it. Justin Sang gets through. It's just as effective at this circuit to almost put the driver in front of you off and force them into an error as it is to make them overtake itself. And Justin Sang played that absolutely perfectly towards the corkscrew there.
If you can't overtake and you don't want to do it physically, just do it mentally. Just get in their head and just, use the force. Just get them out of the way. That is, it's a very tried and true strategy on high pressure tracks. Sticking the nose out right behind on the replay here, and just that was going to cause an overcooking into the corner. Didn't lock the brakes, but probably just picked the wrong spot trying to beat a car that he was worried was going to get the jump on him.
We're just over 20 minutes to go. This battle continues on from 8th place on backwards, and we'd like to remind you, of course, for the last time tonight, that we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13 and 14 this year, we provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across the fleet of now 17 elegant ships sailing to 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Big thanks to them for their continued support in 2025, of course, as well. Still 20 minutes to go from Laguna Seca. Arthur Chan on the back of Liv Pearson here as Pearson leads the brigade of those who have pitted already in this race. Arthur Chan, don't forget, is 3rd place in this championship, after not having finished any lower than 4th place so far this season. Unfortunately, that is looking likely that run is going to come to an end here tonight, and that drop round will have to be used, and a 4th place finish will have to be used based on what this race is currently looking like.
You never really want to have that round that you've designated as your drop. Everybody's dream, of course, and it's one that was decent but just below the rest. And at least it's past the halfway mark of the season. That happens early. You almost drive as if you've sort of got no margin left. But everybody is going to have a bad day, and this is probably one of the hardest tracks. So certainly not too much shame, I think, in struggling on it.
No, absolutely. He goes a little bit wide there as well, just be picking up an off-track maybe. As I mentioned, you do get a penalty in this series that is an instant disqualification if indeed you exceed the incident limit, which is 25 incident points, by the way. There is Terence Tong. He's currently running in 20th place. Still hasn't made his pit stop though, so he's going to drop a long way down. It's going to be frustrating guys like Roy Prescott, who is just in behind at the moment. And here's the lap traffic as well. That's Bryce Rodriguez just in behind. Only up to 19th place are the drivers now on the lead lap. So it's not only traffic for position, but also to put a lap on as well, which Bryce Rodriguez is currently experiencing.
I've noticed the weather starting to get a little bit better around here. The track temperature has risen and the sun certainly has come up after the early morning as Terence Tong passed on the corkscrew, tries to get it back through, but I think trying to double cross that was going to be risky, and now he's quite vulnerable in fact to another overtake from behind. Getting the commitment on the apex on both the inside and the outside of that turn as you head down the hill is very important. He's going to hold him off for now, but that was a brave move into the corkscrew. They do sometimes work now, leaving that last corner open. Does give him a bit of speed on exit, but he's vulnerable here.
Robbie Prescott surely is going to be looking for a way past on the way towards the Andretti hairpin. Is Tom going to actually put it over to defend, or just... No, well, doesn't need to actually. Prescott seemed like he was definitely going to go through as far as I could see there into the final corner, but certainly not. And he has to think about it again in a few moments. There he has another look down the inside. No chance there either. There's 17 minutes to go. It's not really a thing that you can sort of just wait for till it's time to pit, but end up doing exactly that, as this group for 8th place on back is just continuing to get larger. Brett Holmes now comes into the pit lane, so we finally see it broken up, and we'll see whether Holmes will remain the biggest mover forward when these pit stops have all shaken out in the next 10 minutes.
Only a few to go indeed, although everybody that has held out remarkably long, and I'm going to presume they do like the way the car combines when it's a little bit looser and there's less fuel in the thing, because they're going to have to nurse that all the way to the end. I do not see Bryce Rodriguez making up the time now in 15 minutes. It's simply petered out in terms of pace. If anything, fallen back just a bit, not really making any of those inroads needed. So it's just got to basically hope for a mistake up ahead, or just take a P2, and a championship is going to go down to the wire at this rate. They're even going in. They'll be one position away going out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there was one point in the earlier part, certainly in the first half of the race, where Rodriguez did catch one of those 5 seconds back quite quickly, and you thought, this might be on here for a big recovery, but not this time round. It doesn't look like. If it were to end as it is, Blake Townend would take the championship lead by 30 points, and he would go back-to-back, the first repeat winner of this championship season, with Thomas Briggs being the other one. Looks like it's going to be Townend versus Rodriguez for the championship, very much so, but Chan won't lose too many points out of this. He will be over 100 behind, but you can gain 100 points quite easily in this series. I mean, the gap from 1st to 6th is 110. Oh, sorry, no. No, it is exactly 100, sorry. So, there you go. You can gain positions without too much trouble in this series. Points, indeed, therefore, as well. But not Rodriguez's night, unfortunately. Hopefully we'll be able to chat to him at the end of the race and get his view on the incident down into the hairpin. I wonder whether it's going to be a case of, he's feeling upset with Jesse Lyon that he's taken away a potential chance to win, because when Townend went through, no means was he going to just drive away, although he did look a little bit quicker. They matched each other quite well. And, maybe he can just accept the fact that, he was hit towards the hairpin, and that's that, and he'll just come back in a couple of weeks' time to try and regain and win for the second time this season. But it's going to be very interesting to find out how he's feeling at the end of this one, in the face of sort of disappointment, but also a solid 320 points picked up nevertheless.
That's another brutal corner. Stephen Poles there having a little slip wide with no traction control on the exit heading up to the corkscrew. And I'm really interested in this battle for third, because one driver that has been making inroads is Jesse Lyon. And if he can make this pass, then to him, it's like the penalty never, ever happened at all. Consistently a second faster until he got right behind Thomas Isabel, which obviously is going to slow you down a bit, but now in prime position to wait for the chance to make the pass and basically reset everything. Little bit of an awkward situation for the race stewards, I'm sure, but very, very positive right now with this pace gap.
Absolutely. This is Isabel versus Lyon for third position. A look down the inside of the corkscrew, but only just pretending. As Townend comes into the pit lane, have we reached our limit now in terms of fuel? Because Bryce Rodriguez follows through as well. This is about the point in the race where you expect to see it, just inside those final 15 minutes. We expect to see those final pit stops of the day. And here they come. Lyon comes in. Thomas Isabel's going to go through to lead a lap for the first time. This is the second time tonight Thomas Ewing has been spun out.
From bad day to worse at this point, he just finished for the sake of finishing. I think he actually might have hit the tyre barrier on the way out as well. So at that point, you just think, what is my luck today? And something like that happened to me. Jesse Lyon now entering the pit would actually be the second time coming through the pit lane this race. This one's obviously for service. And there's only a few more drivers. When it evens out, it will be Blake Townsend, Bryce Rodriguez, and I believe possibly Jesse Lyon. Depends on the time leaving this pit lane. But that looks like how it's going to be, as drivers are going to be flooding in to finish this.
So the problem for Lyon is that he's ended up behind Chad Henson and Matt Odell. He has had a good stop, and he's got past Odell actually straight away. Side by side, and he might be through. I think he just about is. But this is the problem for him, is that Thomas Isabel's going on one more lap here out front, and Jesse Lyne's just caught up in traffic at the moment. So he gets past Odo, but look at the time he's lost. He's now second behind Henson. They were in one group beforehand. Matthew Suddo gets a black flag, I believe, for that incident indeed. There's Henson just in front of Lyne. So I do wonder whether Thomas Isabel's going to be saved by this little bit of traffic, which is still yet to pit, but is getting in the way of Jesse Lyne on this outlap.
I don't see the gap as significant enough. It's 24 seconds entering this lap, and it's going to be 32 in the lane as is customary. So I think the gap has been big enough in clean air now that Jesse Lyne's going to quite confidently take this P3. Here comes some of our last remaining drivers. Chad Henson, one of the last ones that's in the way, but still only 21 seconds to our leader. Obviously not going to make up that time in race distance. This should even out if my numbers are not stupid, which they maybe can be my first time out. But as the cycle goes around, Chad Henson's between the two, and that means Lyne will have this place when Henson stops.
Indeed. In fact, it's Thomas Isabel who's lost more time there. Half a second slower than Lyne in the pit box. And a bit of an undercut from Jesse Lyne goes straight through. Will be back on the podium again. So recovers very nicely to where he was before that penalty. But I think maybe the thing that he will be wondering is, if I'd have not hit as he goes down the inside here and takes third anyway, doesn't even wait for Hansen to come in, is he going to be wondering at the end of today? I just wonder, you know, what would have happened if he hadn't have hit Rodriguez there? Would he have been able to get involved with Tannen and Rodriguez, or was he just not quick enough tonight? I mean, when he came back out the pit lane, he was just about 20 seconds off the lead. He's only 21.7 off the lead now, and he's been in more traffic than Blake Townend has. So I do wonder how much of a feature Lyne could have been in this race without that error.
I don't know if that top three was really going many places very fast, though. I think the pace gap between the top three was so similar that they were being quite conservative with the way they were making moves on each other in a way that Jesse wasn't, and trying to get past someone that seemed clearly slower just a few corners ago. I think they were driving in such a way that was making it very, very difficult for those passes to happen, and they could have happened, but it was very much not an inevitability. And I think that's interesting in the way that top three drove. Obviously, they ended up splitting out in their own ways, but they were certainly not.
Matthew Odell overshoots his box there, and so Chad Henson's going to keep that place very easily. The two were running nose to tail. Now the second penultimate and penultimate drivers to come in. Chad Henson will easily get away with the place. Justin Sang then, the last driver in on the circuit, and he's perhaps done the smart thing actually. You know, there were two options that I mentioned for drivers who had dropped down. We saw Thomas Ewing go for the undercut one, where you pit very, very early and try and make up positions in clean air by going fast. Justin Sang seems to have done the opposite, in that he's sort of gone slowly almost, but I reckon he's been saving quite a lot of fuel while he's been in traffic, and now what he's going to do is pit in the last 10 minutes of this race, take on a very short amount of fuel just to get him to the end of this race, and hope that that way he's going to gain him more positions. Now, he will finish ahead of Ewing, I think, because Thomas Ewing's had such a miserable afternoon, but it's going to be difficult to sort of compare the two directly against one another. But interesting, the two different approaches made by those two top 10 drivers who had early troubles tonight.
It's sort of my default strategy in races that just have one pit stop. It's just hold out as long as you can and then just see what happens on the other side of it. There is going to be a significant drop in places, but it's interesting just noting that, yeah, there's going to be so little fuel that it might just be slightly shorter than the average time in the box. Here's Blake Townend, 10 minutes, 8 minutes to go even. Time really does fly, and pretty uncontested up at the front since that incident. Certainly is one of the ways of all time to take that lead, but what's done is done now, and what mattered was not making a horrible mistake, although I would not like to curse someone on my first time out here. Otherwise, it's just been a pretty clean run. Deal with traffic, just get your laps done, and don't lose concentration. It's hard to lap this place for an hour, even with no competition, though.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very testing circuit, but I mean, we've got a lot of those coming up. Mosland Aragon is a real circuit where, you know, people don't know it very well. Then you've got Zolder, where you do have to stay focused as well. The less of the flowing turns and more of the chicanes around there. And then you've got VIR to end the season as well. It's a very technical end to the season after starting the season at the wide open expanses of Spa and the very famous Watkins Glen Indianapolis circuits. You know, we're going to some much slower speed, more technical ones to end the season as well. So very much feels like a season with two halves this time around. As Justin Sang now comes in with just 7 minutes to go. Christopher Pives had trouble on that last lap as well. And he drops to 10th place now, 51 seconds off of the lead. As Sang now drops through the field. I think he will come out in 12th position, which all in all I think is not too bad.
For that disaster up at the front, you kind of want to be within that region and say you had a good day, I must say. Just Justin Sang's design was one of the few that the producers before the show spotlighted as quite loving, so kind of wanted to see more of it up there in the race, but unfortunately circumstances called. Final battle that could happen for position here is the P5 lead driver here, and Arthur Chan. Again, it might still be a drop round, but to be honest, it's come out better than it did when you first talked about it.
Yeah. Currently 240 points he'd be gaining, so it would be his drop round still. This is 280 scores his worst currently, but you know, you just want that safety net to fall back on, don't you, in terms of the drop round in these championships. You just want something to say that, you know, if I have a real disaster, am I going to have a good score? Now, it's not quite as good as Townend or Rodriguez's, which is podium finishes, which, sorry, not for Townend, sorry, but for Rodriguez, he'd be taking a podium finish as a drop round because he's finished on the podium in every round so far, and it looks like that's going to continue on tonight. But any sort of top 10 as something to fall back on is indeed positive, as Thomas Ewing gets disqualified. Unsurprising, really, that he's the first to hit the incident limit.
And this is a track where it's not one with like misleading track limits. There are some in iRacing where the track limits are just like, come on, why is that there? Here it's all clear, it's gravel, but the track very much sort of beckons you into the gravel on the exit sometimes. The ones on camera right here, ones on often just go a bit too deep or a bit too wide on, try and carry too much speed, put half the car on the gravel. Yes, it's a skill issue, but you know, it does add up quite quickly for me. So there are plenty of spots where you can rack up those points. Earlier we reported there were only 2 drivers with no incidents. I'd love to know if now there are any drivers with no incidents at this point.
Yeah, Mike Patterson and Chad Henson were the ones for reference who had no incidents at the time. I can't remember how long we were into the race, only 20 minutes or so, something like that. Wasn't very long, but it was a chaotic start to the race, and it's a really difficult circuit to stay out the incidents. I just wonder whether anybody indeed has managed that. Logan Greda looking comfortable here, you've got to say, in the 5th position. Lee Peterson and Arthur Chan sat in behind. And, you know, with only 4 minutes to go, you've really got to size up a move around here that takes multiple laps. And for that, you need to be a lot closer to Logan Greda than they currently are.
At this point, I think it's just waiting for a mistake. And I just went and checked. And no, there are none left for 0 incidents. So that was a mirage. It was due to leave us. All those little bits of off track, they sure add up. Yeah, you're not going to get a pass done from here, but at this stage in the race, you sort of want to lock in your place, I think. Say, I got 5th or 6th or 7th. I'll take it for now, unless something crazy happens.
Yeah, very much so. Well, thanks to Doug Atkinson for keeping us up to date on that one tonight. And one of the admins here at the Push Club America Sim Racing Series. As I mentioned, we'll be back tomorrow night, by the way. More racing from Laguna Seca. I think Ron Mounds and Jeremy Scott will join you here on RaceSpotTV for that one, for the continuation of the Club Championship. And then next week, the Sport and Challenge class return again at the same venue. So 2 weeks of racing here to come from Laguna Seca. Look at that run. Leif Peterson on the outside of Logan Grado into the corkscrew. This could be the chance for Leif Peterson. Oh, and he's off, trying to make it work. He's just about managed to get in front, though. He's got the track position, the all-important track position. Logan Grado's problem and the slight mistake he made through turn 6 there has ultimately cost him 5th. And he's down to 6th position with Leif Peterson claiming that place. Here comes Arthur Chan. He can't quite make the move. It's getting lively in these final few laps.
That was Grado all over the rear bumper of Leif Peterson. I was thinking something bad was going to happen going into the corkscrew, and I thought something bad was going to happen coming out of that final turn, and I don't think Chan is done. He's seen the weakness, dives to the inside. There is contact there, as there wasn't quite a huge amount of space. Grano's around, and the stewards are going to have a hard decision to make 2 minutes.
I think there's 3 laps to go, and you can see the facial expression there on Arthur Chan's face. I'm not sure if he feels, Grano came across on him, or whether he feels he might well get a penalty for that. He might well be regretting it and thinking, was that worth it? As Matthew Siddle becomes the second driver to get disqualified here tonight from Laguna Seca. He's hit the 25-point incident limit as well. This is Jonathan Watman's battle in towards turn 5. And that's the second time tonight Watman's been sent into a spin through turn 5, which is unusual.
Just another one of those corners where you get inside. If you're not quite given enough space, you might wash into the other car. Interesting, that turn 1 incident with Chan felt like a little bit of a mirror image of our race start, actually. It feels so hard to just send it hard into that turn, because you can find that the car in the middle of the track will sort of stay to the middle while you'll wash out just a bit. Only a couple laps to go, almost certainly more than one. If Arthur Chan's going to try chasing down another, it's going to be very, very hard. I think it's a mistake to set up those passes, but that is from bad to worse, losing it before the corkscrew and losing another right there.
Oh dear, oh dear. A dramatic finish here from Laguna Seca. We're likely to see that in all 4 of our categories in this series over the next 2 weeks. Because after so long a follow the leader, you can get a little bit frustrated. You do need to be aggressive to make these moves, and there's likely to be a little bit of contact when those moves are attempted as well. As Blake Townend is coming up towards the final corner at the moment to start the final lap of the race. The gap has actually ballooned in the last few moments to 8.5 seconds as Bryce Rodriguez can't quite keep up with the speed. Hopefully he's got enough fuel on board, but he's continually losing time. Hopefully he'll get away with that. That traffic, and one more time round for Blake Townend, and he'll be a race winner again tonight.
Race certainly, as I mentioned earlier, did sort of die out just a bit past that halfway mark, but setting lap after lap after lap in a loose car as well, because it's a very late pit stop, is not easy, and we've seen many, many drivers fall victim to it entirely by themselves. Everyone on the top of this field that's kept it together should be proud of the finishing result. Blake Townend's going to take what's more important than pride, and that is a win's worth of points in a championship that was tied up beforehand.
Over the top of the hill for Blake Townend. Not only is it going to be our first repeat winner, our first 2 in a row as well. A remarkable bit of form that he's just turning into at the moment after disappointment at Watkins Glen, where he finished 9th. It's not a bad result, all things considered, but it's not the heights of the top step, and that's where Blake Townend has been residing over the last 2 rounds. He comes out the final corner, and Blake Townend wins round 4 of the Porsche Club America Sim Racing Series 14. Round 4 from Laguna Seca is his in the Pro class. Nearly 15 seconds his gap at the line. Just wonder whether Bryce Rodriguez has miscalculated for the 2nd week in a row, and he's dropping all the way down as a result. Is that him over the line there? Yes, it is. Didn't hear him spluttering, but he may well have had trouble towards the finish there. His last lap of the race, 29.3. Very slow indeed. Jesse Lyon recovers a podium despite his contact with Rodriguez earlier on the race, and Arthur Chan gets a black flag which will be applied post-race, and so our 3rd place man in the championship will become a lot more distant from the others. He will now be 120 points off the championship lead of Blake Townend, who will be 30 in front of Bryce Rodriguez. It's becoming a 2-horse race, and we've seen those 2 horses go head-to-head here tonight. Townend comes out on top here at Laguna Seca.
Punishing track, as it was mentioned at the very start, and it turned out to be more punishing than even I could have imagined. Says some words I'm going to eat today, and I might be held to account for the rest of my life. But it was been certainly quite physical, quite racy, quite competitive, and definitely the attrition race that was expected around here in these cars. These are just the pro drivers, and they made plenty of mistakes. The races, I think, are going to get even more exciting in the other classes over the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Come back tomorrow, of course, and indeed next week on Wednesday and Thursday to find out. But it's Blake Townend who wins tonight by 14.6 seconds ahead of Bryce Rodriguez and Jesse Lyon, who we'll chat to in a moment. Thomas Isabel and Lee Peterson round up the top 5, with Logan Grado overtaken by Peterson right at the very end there, but does get 6th place back again. Kerry Brooks gets 7th. Chan came in the pit lane there at the end to serve that black flag. Unsure as to whether that's going to count, but it's 8th place for now. Chris Pye's 9th ahead of Chad Henson, who rounds out the top 10. Also on the lead lap was Matthew Odell, Matthew Jokel, Kevin Jokel, goodness me, that they could use some different names there. Brett Holmes, Robbie Prescott, who round out those on the lead lap. 1 lap down for Jonathan Watman, Mike Patterson, Stephen Poles, Rodney Campbell and Terence Tong, who round out the top 20. Also 1 lap down for Christopher Cook, Eric Sutton and Klaus Nielsen. Justin Sang and Matthew Siddle dropped to 3 down at the end there, with Thomas Ewing 5 down. Got it disqualified, as did Siddle. Lenny Holland 15 down in the end. He didn't gain any positions and sadly parked it towards the end. Ben Leung retired very, very early on tonight. Let's have a chat then to Blake Townend, shall we? Our race winner for the 2nd round a row. And Blake, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Congratulations on your race win tonight. It all came down to that one pass he made into the Mario Andretti hairpin on Bryce Rodriguez. And the ensuing incident behind, of course, wasn't anything to do with you. But tell us about the pass, how you managed to size it up, how you managed to complete it in the early stage of that race.
Yeah, so I noticed Bryce was being a little bit slower on the entry to some of these, going his last corner, the corkscrew. I had so many intrusive thoughts going through my head. I was thinking maybe Alex Zanardi passing the corkscrew. I thought it was too risky. I thought, yeah, if I can get a good exit out of the last corner, then I can maybe send it down the inside, and that I did. And that was pretty clean. Fortunately, Bryce and Jess had a collision, and that kind of that literally helped my race really. And then Bryce was coming. He put the pressure on like a madman, and then I was just able to pump in those fast lap times. And it's really stressful with with all these sausage calves, and that turn 6 before the corkscrew is it's like a lottery. Do you turn in early or late, and kind of just hope for the best?
Yeah, it's a really challenging circuit, as I can imagine. I mean, how are you feeling at the end of 4 rounds? We're past halfway in this season now, and you'll be the championship leader by just 30 points. How do you envision these final 3 rounds going in this battle between yourself and Bryce?
It's going to be challenging. Bryce is a mega fast driver, and then I'm sure Thomas is going to come back for the next round. Anything can happen in these races, so it's just a matter of being as consistent as possible. Some luck, hoping you stay out of trouble, and just hope for the best.
Well, congrats on the win tonight, Blake, and thanks for chatting to us once again at the end tonight.
Yeah, and thank you to SimShop. Thank you so much, and thank you guys for putting this broadcast on, and the whole of PCA for making this event possible.
Thanks very much, Blake Townend, the winner tonight from Laguna Seca in the Porsche Club America Sim Racing Series Pro Class in round 4. Let's have a chat to Bryce Rodriguez as well, who finishes in 2nd place tonight. Bryce, welcome in. Good to have you with us at another podium finish. You're still the only driver to have got a podium every time. But tell us about that incident that has unfortunately decided this race and decided a 2nd place for yourself when you and Jesse Lyon made contact after being passed by Blake Townend. It was all happening. Tell us your perspective on it.
Yeah, so going into turn 1, just left the door open. Blake went down the inside. I tried to kind of cut back on him, and then it all happened so fast, and Jesse was on the inside, and then we made contact. So yeah, well, it's kind of unfortunate because it kind of ruined the close battle that we had, and then from there I just tried to catch up, but just wasn't enough to catch back up to P1.
Yeah, for a while you and Blake were trading lap times, and you did get down to 4 seconds at its smallest, but the gap at the line was nearly 15. What was the reason for losing so much time towards the end again there?
Fuel strategy. I was going to run out of fuel towards the end of the race, so I just wanted to be sure, and since I had the margin too, kind of just went for the ultimate fuel save at the end just to make sure I didn't run out at the very last corner. So
are you going to put a few more litres in next time, just so you don't don't run out for a 3rd week?
I will, yeah.
Well, we look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks for chatting to us, Bryce, and congrats on P2 tonight.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks so much. That's Bryce Rodriguez, second place tonight from Laguna Seca, just in front of Jesse Line, who recovers to third. Jesse, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Congratulations on a bit of a yo-yo day, but still a third place finish. Get your perspective finally on the incident in towards the Mario Andretti hairpin that eventually gave you the penalty. What were your feelings on it at the time?
I knew I was going to get a penalty. I kind of just tunnel visioned and was just following them through. I was letting them fight, and by the time I realized I was either going to hit him, I was going to go left or right, and he sort of cut the corner off, so I chose to go left, and I just drove straight into him. I'm glad it didn't turn out as bad as it could have, but I knew I was going to get the penalty right after.
But just before that, you managed to stick with those two very nicely compared to the qualifying times, which saw you have a big gap in front of you from fourth place. Obviously, Thomas Ewing spun out of that through turn number 1 anyway. But, what was the reason for that? Was it sort of you couldn't get it working in qualifying? Was your race pace always better than qualifying pace? How come you were able to stay so much closer to the leaders in the race than in qualifying?
I don't usually do as well with qualifying. My nerves don't usually settle down for qualifying, and I make a bunch of little mistakes. When I got into the race, it's much easier just to go in with a mindset of I'm just going to follow and stay behind them and let them hash it out and look for an opening. So all I really tried to do was just mimic their brake lines, and whenever they broke, I broke. Whenever they turned, I turned. And that's kind of what I was just looking for throughout the race.
Well, congrats on getting to a podium here tonight at Laguna Seca, and thanks for coming to chat to us at the end as well.
Yeah, of course, it was a lot of fun.
Thanks very much. That's Jesse Line, third place tonight from Laguna Seca in the Pro class. Well, Howie, it was a good opening broadcast for your RaceSpot career. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. But what do you make of the race itself? But Laguna Seca Racing always going to have its own certain style, and we certainly saw that tonight.
And it almost goes without saying that Porsche Cup car racing is always very, very thrilling on iRacing, whereas drivers are in such control of their own destinies, and they have to very much fight a car that doesn't really like them around a track that makes the car like them even less. It's a real test of skill, and this is only one of the 4 races we'll be seeing on these cars around this track. So I'm quite excited to see how the rest really play out, because it is different, but I still think it's very engaging in its own way.
Absolutely. Back with the club class tomorrow, as I'll talk about in a second. But that time just to show you the next round, which is Motorland Aragon in 2 weeks' time. There it is, 29th of October from 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Right around that time, at that time, by the way, the clocks will be changing across the world. So do check the local time in your area as to whether that will be a change from now until then. 29th of October for Motorland Aragon will be live here on RaceSpotTV, as always, from 9 p.m. Eastern. As we will be tomorrow, as we say, the club class is returning from WeatherTech Laguna Seca for another race like this one. I hope you come back to enjoy that one with us again. It's going to be a lot of fun. But thanks for your company here tonight. It's been great to be along once again here on RaceSpotTV for the latest round of the Porsche Club America Sim Racing Series 14. I've been Neil Leary alongside Howie Burrows with Ramiro Agustin Cisneros tonight in the Pro class. We'll be back tomorrow with the club class. Hope to see you all then. Goodbye for now.